Okay, I think we're good to start. Welcome everyone to today's the last day of our winter boot camp. We're super excited to be here. Just as a quick recap, my name is Euhane. I'm the co-VP of SLB. We have a couple other presenters today. Do you guys want to introduce yourselves?
Hello, I'm Sharia. I'm one of the other co-VPs from Activities Division. I've been a part of ACEF for 3 years now, and I'm really glad to be here and presenting for the Winter Bootcamp. Today we'll be starting off by talking about how to actually communicate our projects. We'll be going into things like the general paperwork that we need to submit and all these various submissions like the quad chart and the physical board, and basically talking about how to present effectively and competitively to ACEF judges as well to try and secure like better presentations and higher placements within the fair. And we'll also be having our own mock judging event towards the end. Okay, yeah. So first off, we'll be talking about, as I said before, the ACEF deliverables, a lot of paperwork, the virtual and as well as the virtual and physical submissions that are required to actually participate in the fair. Then we'll be discussing what specifically judges like tend to look for as they're going over their various projects, maybe going into how a judge actually thinks and what they want to see from your project specifically. Then we'll talk about how you should go about pitching your own project so you are also successful with your ASEF experience. And then after the break, we'll go into our mock judging session and then have a small Kahoot to wrap things up.
Now we're gonna get into the deliverables for ASEF. So we went over a bunch of these before, but we want today just to focus on the different paperwork that you're gonna be submitting and the quad chart, some of the other things you guys had questions about. The paperwork is coming up soon. The deadline is Jan 16th. And this link right here, we're gonna send this also in the chat, but this has a comprehensive overview of every single piece of form that you have to submit and deliverable. So quad chart and other deliverables like that. Everything will be in this one link. And um, one of the main forms that we wanted to go over was Form 1B. This form is also in this overview, it's linked. And this is a required form that every student must submit to SRC. And some of these other forms include 1C and Form 7. These are optional, but if any of this applies to you, then you have to fill those out as well. So yeah, this link that we sent right now in the chat will go over everything that you need to know for paperwork. The next deliverable that we want to go over is the abstract. So obviously every single project needs an abstract, and we have the template linked here. We're gonna send out this slideshow again, all the deliverable. We're gonna have a bunch of examples, templates, and forms. Everything will be linked, so we'll send that out in the recap email. But for now, for the abstract, all you need to know is that it's maximum 250 words. It should include the research question or engineering problem. It should cover the procedures that you used. It should have some data that you collected. It should have your interpretation or analysis of the data, and it should have the conclusion. So it's just a comprehensive summary of your entire project. The next thing is the virtual display. I'm gonna go over some of these links while I'm sharing my screen. The virtual display has two different types, so science project and engineering projects, right? So a lot of you guys are doing both of these types of projects. We want to give you guys some examples that you can refer to if you are doing these types of projects. So I'm just gonna show them really quickly. So this is an example for a science project. You can see that it has the title slide, the introduction, the methods, the results, and then discussion, conclusion, and then the acknowledgements or references page. I'm also going to show you guys the engineering project. So this again is for the engineering project. You have the title slide, introduction, methods, procedure, results, discussion and conclusion, and then the references. So these are some examples you can refer to. We've also linked some templates. So this is for if you're doing a science project, we highly recommend you to make a copy of some of these templates and make your projects out of these. So you can see that the guidelines for each of the slides are on here. So for the title slide, these are some of the guidelines that you should be following for introduction, methods, and then it goes on. We have that for science and engineering projects, and they should be shared in the chat. Yeah. Uh, let's move on to the quad chart.
Yes. Okay. So the quad charts, yeah, they're basically another form of communicating your project that will be used by ASEF. The quad chart itself basically summarizes your project into like a single small page for like quick overview by the judges. So the main point is that it's using a lot of graphics with like limited wordage, so a judge can look at your quad chart pretty briefly and still get a good sense of what your project is about. So here we have like a template for the quad chart for a science project. Um, it starts top left with your like scientific question, basically talking about what you're trying to achieve, what your like end goal for the actual project is, what problem you're trying to solve, right? Then it goes to the methodology, basically talking about how are you going to go about trying to solve this problem. And then after that, the data analysis and results is basically analyzing your methodology, basically seeing like how well things worked, just trying to do analysis on your own methodology. And lastly, interpretation and conclusions, basically doing more analysis on what your data means and what it really implies in the real world. Okay. And then here we have an example of the quad chart for the engineering projects. This is pretty similar in its structure, starting off with the problem, objectives, what you're trying to achieve, going into how you're going to try and achieve these end goals using whatever project design, kind of similar to the methodology for the science fair, for the science quad charts. Then goes into data analysis and results of your own designs, and then interpretation of these results and data to see what they actually mean, what they imply for the real world. Okay. This is an example of a previous science project quad chart. It's basically just for your guys' reference. Maybe if you later on when you're doing your own quad charts, you can reference this and see if it looks similar. But yeah, this is following the template talking about all of the same areas. And this here is an example of an engineering quad chart. Same thing, it's just following the template and it's here to serve as like a reference for you guys to use in the future. Okay, so then uh, there's an optional video presentation that you're allowed to submit for ASEF judging. It's completely optional, but if you guys want to look at it more, this text is available in, or like a better description is available in page 11 of the actual overview document that we sent earlier. It's basically just a video of you presenting your project to like as if a judge were in front of you, so that a judge at the fair could watch the video and still get, without meeting you in person, could still get an understanding of what your project's about. Okay. And then there's the lab notebook. On the slides, there's a link to like a sample lab notebook you guys can look through. Yeah, it's basically just going through your entire project just in more detail than like a quad chart would, going through all the various parts, introduction, um, methodology, things like that, right? The main thing is for both the science projects and the engineering projects, it's kind of documenting your entire journey of how you went about trying to solve whatever problem you had, right? Like if you're basically every single change you're making to your project or everything that you're doing, it's something that you would log in your lab notebook, kind of as proof that you were really making changes and like overcoming obstacles while completing your project, right? So and that idea of like trying to overcome obstacles, having to change things around and make adaptations to your project, that's a really big part of being a scientist, right? So a lot of times judges like to see how you've tried to act like a scientist, and that is most like greatly represented within your lab notebook, right? So having a lab notebook really can show a judge like what you've had to overcome and what you've had to do in order to really get your results and get your findings. Right. And then lastly, we have the physical, not last, sorry. We have the physical poster display. This is basically those massive posters you guys see when you're actually at ACEF, maybe like the trifolds or the massive printed posters. This is also in the overview doc that we sent earlier, and it's basically just going over all of the requirements. One thing I do want to like point out is for the maximum size, it does when they're like checking you in to the actual fair, right? It's noting that the size of your poster, it's not just the poster, but it's also like a little flag that they hang on top of your poster in order to signify that it's meeting all the conditions required for you to participate, right? So that little flag, it's something added like once you get to the actual facility. So make sure to like account for that, account for those dimensions when designing your poster, so you don't accidentally go over the actual limit of how big your poster can be because you didn't know there's going to be like a little attachment added on. But yeah, the rest of this is pretty self-explanatory, and you can reference this later on when you're making your own posters.
So, we talked about in previous days how to make professional posters or designing your own posters. So, if you want to break away from the traditional trifold, this is something I would highly recommend. So, we've linked some templates for different kind of layouts for these types of posters. So, I can show you guys just really quickly one of them. So, for example, if you were to design one of these posters yourself, you would want to have your title at the top bar. You would include the background section, and these are just all the sections listed out. And yeah, so if you're interested in designing your own unique poster, then I would recommend using some of these templates that we've linked. So something else that's super duper important is citations. Anytime for all your deliverables, if you have any graphics, it's important that you cite your graphic. So always cite your sources. This is per ISEF rules, and ASEF follows them as well. The format for citation is APA 7. So you can use this tool here, MyBib. You can basically cite, you can basically like, throw in a link and you can generate a citation for that link. And this is an example that we've given here. You can see this is a graphic that we've taken from the internet of a NASA satellite. So you can see this is the figure, you say fig, and then the figure number, the small caption to describe what the image is depicting, and then your in-text citation in parentheses followed by a period. So this is like the general convention for citations. And then the bibliography citation would look like this. I've just taken this from the MyBib. You can just copy paste that and put that in your bibliography section. Lastly, these are some really important resources that we want to also cover. So we've linked a bunch of examples for the virtual display, quad chart, and abstract and posters, but the official ACEF documentation also provides examples of high-level ISEF projects. So you can see here, these are some of the examples that it provides. These are past ISEF projects that went from ACEF. So these are super high-level examples. So you can feel free to follow some of these. And it has the virtual presentation, it has the quad chart, and it has some of the abstracts. And I think it even has, yeah, it has pictures from the poster boards. So yeah, this is another good resource that you guys can use. This is another resource that is not sponsored by ASEF, but is something that a lot of professional poster designers use. It's essentially a service that helps you print out your posters and make them look professional, right? So you can see here, it has a bunch of templates. You can use these as well, but the main service is actually printing your poster. So you can go here, you can print out professional paper posters, you can print out fabric posters, you can even print out posters directly onto a trifold. So these are a bunch of different resources that yeah, you guys can use. So feel free to take a look at these after we send out the slides. All right. So now we're gonna do a small activity. We've blown through a bunch of these deliverables, but now we're actually gonna start making your own deliverable. So we're gonna open some breakout rooms and we're gonna tackle this activity in a breakout room.